Man, I did not see this coming. The Los Angeles Clippers have been bounced out of the playoffs in the second round, so it's time to look at their future. So if you guys like my content, make sure you like and subscribe. Let's try to get 2 likes on today's video, and let's hop into it. Going into this season, the Clippers were looked at not just as one of the best teams this season, but one of the better teams in NBA history. The face of this team was none other than Kawhi Leonard, who at the time had consistently been given the crown of the best player in the league following his incredible title run with the Toronto Raptors. While that might seem pretty ridiculous right now, it really wasn't a year ago. What got everyone excited about what could be was the team he was going to. The Los Angeles Clippers, despite not having much superstar talent, had been a very solid team the previous season, pushing the Warriors to 6 games with the combination of grit, depth, and surprising young talent. Based on what they were able to do in the playoffs, the expectations were going to be extremely high after adding a player of Kawhi Leonard's caliber. The hype and expectations would go to a whole new level when they made a blockbuster move with the Oklahoma City Thunder to acquire Paul George. George was considered by most a top 10 player in the league, and his combination of 3-point shooting and perimeter defense made this team look absolutely unstoppable on paper. Between George, Kawhi, Pat Bev, Landry Shamet, who had just had a great rookie season, and some of the best bench pieces in the whole league in Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, it was flat out hard to see how this team wasn't going to win the title. The team went into the season as the odds-on favorite, but at the time, I even thought that line was way too low with how closely it was to the Los Angeles Lakers. This roster seemed to get more unfair as the season went on, bringing in guys like Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson. As we now know, this team wasn't nearly what we thought it was and are out of the playoffs. Now, I definitely thought the Lakers representing the Western Conference in the finals was in the realm of possibilities, but I really didn't imagine a scenario where both the Clippers and Lakers weren't facing off in the Western Conference finals, but here we are. If we're talking about this team's future, we've got to start it off with that Paul George trade. The Thunder had been extremely underwhelming since adding George, and it really didn't look like there was a path to title contention, and the Clippers came to the table with an offer they just couldn't refuse. The Thunder only gave up Paul George, and in return received Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who at the time was fresh off a great rookie season, but really broke out this year and is now a 19-point-a-game scorer and one of the best young guards in the whole league. They also got Danilo Gallinari, who had to be in the deal salary-wise, and while the Thunder might lose him for nothing this season, he brought a lot of value and was a major reason this team had so much success. If we knew what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would become at the time of the trade, it probably wouldn't have taken too much more to get something done, but on top of these two guys, the Thunder also received Miami's 2021 first-round pick unprotected, the Clippers' 2022 first-round pick unprotected, Miami's 2022 first-round pick lottery protected, the right to swap picks with the Clippers in 2023, the Clippers' 2024 first-round pick unprotected, the right to swap with the Clippers in 2025, and the Clippers' 2026 first-round draft pick unprotected. Sam Presti is a beast. What's crazy about this trade is how far into the future these picks go. It's one thing to trade draft picks in upcoming years, where you can get a pretty good idea of their expected value, but it's really dangerous to give up picks like a 2026 unprotected first-round selection, which is 7 years out of the time of this trade. It's damn near impossible to say what their roster will look like that far into the future. This could become a very similar situation to that Boston Celtics Brooklyn Nets trade that haunted the Nets for years. If the Clippers win the title next season, not many are going to criticize their decision, but this could get really ugly really fast. Their star duo Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both under contract for just one more season with a player option after that, which I think most expect them to decline. At this point, they're probably in a lose-lose situation with their new stars. They either lose one or both of these guys, or they've got to dish out big contracts to players that will now be in their early 30s. They again are going to be contenders for the title next season, but after that, if they lose Kawhi and PG, what do they have? We know not many draft picks. Marcus Morris is a free agent this season. Patrick Beverley's on the books for 3 more seasons. It will be 34 when his deal comes to an end. Lou Williams, who is 33, is on contract for just 1 more year, but these guys are clearly not a part of their long-term future. They've got their 26-year-old 6th man of the year, Montrezl Harrell, becoming a free agent this summer. and their only true quote-unquote young talent would be Landry Shamet, Mfiondu Kabengele, Terrence Mann, and Ivica Zubac, all of which can be very solid, but none of which have much of a high ceiling. So there's a real shot that going into the 2021 season, the only players they have that are currently on the roster are Pat Bev, Ivica Zubac, Rodney Magruder, Landry Shamet, Kabengele, and Terrence Mann, and they're without their draft picks to take advantage of a below average roster. Now, this isn't necessarily the roster they're gonna have. As we said, Kawhi, George, or both could resign. Los Angeles is one of the biggest markets. They could bring in some big names as money frees up. But let's look at the scenario that they didn't make that Paul George trade. In the playoffs, Playoff P went crazy, averaging a career low since 2013, 20 points, shooting below 40% from the field, and 33% from three. This is the fourth consecutive underwhelming postseason in a row for him. The question is, was this team actually better with this trade? Between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who averaged 16 points, shooting 43% from the field and 40% from three in round one against the Rockets, and Danilo Gallinari, who wasn't playing great in round one, but wasn't too far away from what George was doing. You can make a fully legitimate case that this team would have actually been better, and that's not even mentioning all their outgoing first-round selections that will extremely hinder their future. If the Los Angeles Clippers can't win a title next season, and I really mean win the title, that's the expectation. This might be looked back at not only as one of the most underwhelming teams in NBA history, but as a front office disaster. I really think one of this team's biggest downfalls was too much depth. Too many guys that have been used to a certain role for a while. You're bringing in all this talent, but yet are still counting on Kawhi to put this team on his back, which we saw in the playoffs, leading the team in every statistical category. We saw Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell really reduce their volume going into the postseason. Two guys that I felt were going to be the X factor for their title run. They brought in Marcus Morris, who had been accustomed to a first option, high volume scoring role leading up to joining the team. They brought in Reggie Jackson, who we know had been a top guy in Detroit and gave him just 14 minutes a game in the playoffs. A huge part of winning basketball is having proper distribution of touches, guys that understand their role and are willing to buy into a championship system. This team had sky-high expectations, had to deal with the unforeseen bubble situation, which everyone had to deal with, so that's not much of an excuse, and had way too many guys unaware of where they fit in this team. As a Thunder fan, I'm very, very happy we made that trade, but I'm honestly starting to feel pretty bad for Clippers fans. I think this upcoming season is going to be some of the most pressure on a team to win it all we've ever seen. This team has no security in its long-term future with their stars. This team doesn't have much of anything to show for young talent, and this team doesn't have control of their first-round selections till we're approaching the next decade. If they win a title next year, a lot of these concerns will be temporarily wiped away, but if that doesn't happen, and the Clippers have to depend on their market to bring in top talent, this team could be looking at a very dark future of mediocrity. But that's the video, guys. These are just my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe. And the shoutouts are gonna be Lakers fan, Jake, Owen, Brandon, and Deshaun. If you guys want to shout out in the next video, all you gotta do is like the video and comment liked, or rep notification squad, and I'll shout 5 of you guys out. With all that being said, hope you guys have a great day, and peace.